Hello, everyone. This is Dorie Clark, and we are here with our weekly edition of Newsweek's interview show, Better, where we talk to authors, to entrepreneurs, and top executives about strategies that we can apply in our lives and careers to make ourselves better. And today's guest is a wonderful author. He's a New York Times bestseller. His name is Brant Cooper. He is the author previously of The Lean Entrepreneur, and his new book is Disruption Proof, which all of us need these days. Brant, very nice to connect with you. Thanks for coming here.
Great to connect with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for everyone who is tuning in from around the world, please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and questions that you have for Brant about how you can make yourself disruption proof and how to drive change, how to create value, and all the good things that we're trying to do. So Brant, with your new book, I think we probably don't need to cover why it's important to be disruption proof. I think most of us are fairly bought into that concept. But I'd love to hear more about your thoughts about what we're missing. I think most people are like, yes, this sounds like a very good idea. What are one or two things that more people should be doing but aren't?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say, I guess, is that this is the new normal. So don't wait for something that's pre-pandemic to come back. It's not coming back. And so I think the first thing is really just a call to action that you need to change things for our current environment. I also think that when people think about disruption, they often think about startups and technology. And I think what you're alluding to and have picked up on is that the disruption is no, it's things like the pandemic and ransomware attacks and energy grid collapses and supply chain issues. And so I think I want people to imagine that, yes, these things have always gone on, but because of the digital age, we're so globally interconnected, and the speed of information and misinformation and disinformation, it's so fast that all of these things now ripple across the economy and ripple across our businesses. And so this is what we have to build our organizations to be more resilient towards. And so that's resilient is sort of one of the words that I use along with aware and dynamic to describe what we need to do. And so resiliency is having firm roots planted based upon the maybe the DNA of our organization or a competitive advantage, a differentiation, but also then being flexible. And aware means we have to purposefully go out and understand what the heck is going on in the world around us because it's going to affect us. And the third dynamic is we have to be willing to change what we're doing based upon new information. And I think the latter is maybe the more difficult one because we're so process oriented, we're so like execution focused that you have to build in the time to pause, reflect on your work, take in new information, both internally, externally, and then go, hey, should we change what we're doing now based upon this new information? And so there's a lot of practices in the concepts around agile that build into your organization this ability to pause, take in information, and change if necessary.
Really interesting. Thank you. I'm Dorie Clark, and we're here with Brant Cooper. You can learn more about him and his work at brantcooper.com. He's the author of a new book, which is Disruption Proof. And we want to say hi to some of the great friends tuning in and joining us from around the world. Thank you for being here, Monique. We've got Sarav joining us. Celeste is in South Africa. Cheryl is in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Bill's in Lake Norman, North Carolina. Patricia's joining from Boston. Lucilla is in Mexico City. Herb is tuning in from Cincinnati. Nancy from Boston. Kimberly's in New York, Jennifer's from Jacksonville Beach, and more. We love having all of you here. Type your questions about becoming disruption proof for Brant Cooper into the chat box. Now, Brant, something that I'm wondering about, your previous book was The Lean Entrepreneur. How do these sort of strategies around lean management, lean processes, how does that factor into becoming disruption proof? Obviously, there is a sort of narrative progression and thread in your work, but how do you see it? And what are some principles that more of us could and should be applying?
Right. So the lean part, especially, specifically my work is in lean innovation or the lean entrepreneur. So traditional lean is how do we reduce waste in creating value for customers or for other human beings? And most of the we know what the market is and we know what the products are. Whereas the lean innovation, lean entrepreneur is about, well, what are the activities that you're doing as an individual or as a business when we don't know? We don't know yet. We're facing massive amounts of uncertainty, or we're doing a startup or product innovation. And so those principles describe the behavior that we need inside of an organization that makes us more rad, makes us more resilient and aware and dynamic. And so those practices uh, are things like interviewing customers or getting to know customers, having empathy for customers, and also applying these empathy practices to colleagues and to your team members and even workers trying to understand their leaders better. So it's building real empathy into our daily work. And it also includes things like human-centered design and rapid experimentation that can bust through our assumptions, and how do we leverage data and insights in order to cut through the biases that we have around the work that we're doing or around product ideas. And so lean entrepreneur was this, hey, how do we actually get the behavior? And then the disruption proof is really more like, okay, leaders, we really need to fundamentally change the way we manage work in order to allow the lean entrepreneur behavior to proliferate and scale. And I tell you, one of the amazing side effects of that is everybody wants to work that way. We hire smart, intelligent, creative people, and they want to be able to solve problems. And the behaviors of lean innovation or lean entrepreneurship is that behavior that they want to do. It makes them feel like they are driving impact and that they're solving problems. And we've got the big quit and the silent quit and all of these things, and people burned out. Well, let's create an environment where they want to work this way, and it also drives impact for the organization.
That's great. Thank you. We're here with Brant Cooper. His new book is Disruption Proof. And if you're enjoying this conversation, hit the like button, hit the share button so that your friends can benefit from it as well. We wanted to say hi to some of our amazing viewers tuning in. Faustino is joining from, I think that's France. He used an icon and it's a little hard to tell the colors, but I think it's France. Jeanette's in Chile. Emmanuel is joining from Ghana. Peter is tuning in from Edinburgh. Ruchira is in the San Francisco Bay. Sarav's in India. Alicia is in Berkeley. Jesus is joining from Mexico, Yusra from Turkey, Liz from Maryland, and Kathy from St. Louis. We love having all of you type your questions for Brant Cooper into the chat box. Now, Brant, in your book, Disruption Proof, you talk about, you have sort of a foundational principles. You call them the 5 E's, the 5 elements, and they sort of form the basis for how we need to be thinking about these issues. Would you mind walking us through either some or all of them, your favorites perhaps, so that we can incorporate that framework into our own thinking as well?
Yeah, sure. So those evolved out of the lean entrepreneur. So I've mentioned a couple of them: empathy and the evidence. I call one of the E's exploration, and that's really when you admit when you don't know something, and you therefore go into learning mode. Human beings are born to learn. It's the power that humans have over all other species. It's really quite incredible, and yet we sort of drive it out of us. And leaders are often advancing because they know or they pretend to know. And so one of these new traits we need is this self-awareness and vulnerability to go like, listen, things have changed. I don't know, I don't have all of the answers, so let's go into exploration mode and go figure it out. And I like to say exploration makes execution more efficient, because if you have any amount of uncertainty, learning how to overcome the uncertainty is actually going to make your execution more efficient. So the other thing that I talk about is ethics. And we have our values on our websites, but we need to build it into our work. And there's ways of doing this. Again, if you go back to agile teams are self-organized and autonomous, and they get to figure out what's the best way to work in order to accomplish their mission. And so you can build expected behaviors and guardrails into the mission statements, keeping the safety of particular customers or market segments, or we're allowed to do this and not do something else. And so you build the ethical behavior into a team framework. The social the social part of being on a team means that the members will hold each other accountable, not only for the work to be done, but also for the behavior. And so I think that that's connective tissue that we need to build into our work so that, especially in the digital age, we're keeping the safety of our customers in mind. I think it's sort of easy here behind keyboards and I ones and zeros and all the electronic stuff to not think about what we're doing, what the effect is on our customers and other human beings. And so we need to build the ethics into the work that we're doing.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you. We're here with Brant Cooper, author of Disruption Proof. If you want to make sure you never miss one of our weekly Newsweek interview shows, it's every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, 5 o'clock sometimes, 4 o'clock other times in London, depending on our time zone shifts. Just go to DorieClark.com. You can sign up, get a free self-assessment on the website, and you'll get reminders about these conversations. And if you want to learn about Brant Cooper, well, my goodness, just go to BrantCooper.com, and that is the way to do it. You can check out his books. So, Brant, something that I am also curious about, I'm actually going to read a quote here. It is so in Disruption Proof, you say the new business emerges from within the old. It reveals itself from the ground up while being sculpted by the very organization it is replacing. This sounds exciting, possibly a little scary here. Talk to us more. Like, what do you mean by this? And how does this kind of recycling situation happen?
Yeah, so you know, I think leadership understands that they need to change how they manage and structure work, but typically what they do is hire a big consulting firm, and there's this big top-down effort, and it ends up being very, very process heavy. And I think over the years, most people inside the organization go like, well, this is never going to work, and I don't want to do this. And if I just sit back, all I got to do is wait, and it'll come to an end, and then we'll be able to move on. And then the other, I think, mythology around this is that you have to be a you have to be a snake that eats its own tail. You have to innovate in a way that's going to replace the business. And I don't think that those things are true. I think true transformation happens from the ground up, and it's behavior based. And so what you have to do, in my opinion, is you need the leaders to like say, yes, we're going to do this, and they need to cheerlead and they need to fund it, and there's new training required. But ultimately, what you have are groups inside ground level that are changing their behavior. They're practicing and behaving in new ways, and yet they're driving impact to the organization. And that's what starts creating this momentum for change, is really a grassroots, a ground up thing. And the moment business units and leaders start seeing, like, well, wait a second, this is that spirit that we need, then it starts creating this momentum. And so it literally starts emerging from inside the organization as opposed to some sort of external factor. And then what the organization does is like, well, how do we reinforce that behavior? What are the new processes and structures we put into place so that we don't kill those things? And so there you have, very traditional parts of the organization, maybe HR and finance and legal, that are actually going, okay, now we need to start protecting these entities that are inside the business and allow them to grow, because this is what's going to allow us to survive and thrive in the 21st century. So that's sort of how I imagined that when I wrote that phrase.
I love it. That's great. Thank you very much. We're here with Brant Cooper, author of Disruption Proof. We want to say hi to our amazing viewers. Malin is tuning in from Hamburg. We have Ihuaku from Houston. Lauren is joining us from Miami. Imad's in Algeria. David's in Monterrey, Mexico. We have Shavoy from Jamaica. Marie is tuning in. Ivana is here from Poland. We've got Hella saying hi. We've got Marie in California today. Christine on the plane coming back from flight back to San Antonio, and Stacy's in Reston, Virginia. So we're glad to have all of you. And a great question, Brant, came through from Trisha in Canada. And Trisha wants to know, can you tell us more about your thoughts on what it might look like to help folks work on becoming more self-aware? It sounds like a great idea, not always easy in practice. What would you recommend?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think that there's a couple of directions one can go. I think that you can teach empathy development skills, even sort of customer facing, and teach people how to interview and listen to customers in ways different than they typically do now. And I think that there will always be people in the organization, particularly human-centered designers, that do that better than others. But even just getting people to start listening to others actually, I think, helps people start listening to themselves. And of course, then the other direction one can come at this is teaching people to listen to themselves. So mindfulness and maybe some meditation practices and just simply breathing, being conscious of your in breath and your out breath creates self-awareness. And so I think that those would be the two directions that I would try to go. I am not, it's funny, I don't want to insult anybody, but I'm not very woo woo. I'm really not a woo woo person. Um, Yet I do meditation and I do practice self awareness and I do work on my empathy skills. And so I think that one of the biggest obstacles in the corporations is to allow people to come at it from different directions so they don't feel like there's something that's not, I don't know, part of their personality being thrown on top of them. So it requires a number of different directions, I think, for different people in the organization. But it's definitely the kind of the long haul is increasing that. I think leaders could do a lot just by themselves demonstrating that behavior. So admitting when they don't know things and admitting when they've made mistakes, and so leaders play a big role in that as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Brant Cooper. He's the author of Disruption Proof. And Brant, something I would love for you to talk a little bit more about, something that you have mentioned in your work is what you call the endure phase. And frankly, I feel like a lot of people during the pandemic, post pandemic, they feel like they've maybe been enduring a lot. And so when it comes to navigating that, perhaps less fun part of the cycles. What are your suggestions about how businesses and individual professionals can do more to sort of survive and perhaps even thrive during what may feel like a slog?
So I suffered from this during the pandemic was isolation. So I think that a lot of people suffered from that. And I think that then you have to get to the point that you're purposeful about connecting with other people. And even more than that, connecting maybe with like-minded people, at least in a corporate sense. I mean, community-wise, I think we should be connecting with all people, but if you're one that is more entrepreneurial or are into the sort of the empathy development and design thinking and those type of things, find like-minded people inside your organization. Set up a bi-weekly or a monthly virtual happy hour where everybody comes in and just is chatting about how to scale it in their organization. Or so you kind of want to find your early adopters whenever you're trying to change mindset, and those are going to be the people that keep you positive and have the ideas and are going to champion what you're up to. So I think that especially if we're working remote, we have to build the social connection into the work because otherwise people are not getting those water cooler moments that they had in the office. So so I guess that's what I would suggest is like try to connect with early adopters or like-minded people inside your organization on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. And we want to say hi. We've got awesome folks who are watching, many of whom join us every week. So thank you for that. Ruth is tuning in from France, Angelina from New York City. We have Tudong from Paris. We have a LinkedIn friend from Iran, LinkedIn friend from London. Gabrielle is joining again from Mexico. Zeke is back from San Benito, Texas. Tracy's from Kenya. Alexandra's in Ghana. Rich is from Phoenix. Rita Marie is tuning in from Ireland. And Michael from Southern Idaho. We're glad to have all of you here.
All
And
around the world. How amazing is this? This is
it
so
is
fantastic.
It's really great. And Brant, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you. I know you're coming in from Southern California here. A great question came in from Emmanuel, and he wants to know ways that he can encourage his team to build up resilience with regard to ethical behavior without making it seem like he's being all preachy. Are there strategies or suggestions that you have that he can apply, and your thoughts about resilience and ethics in general?
Sure. So great question. I think that so I'm imagining an agile team, and when I talk agile, I don't really mean sort of rigid implementations of particular methodologies like Scrum or Safe, but to go to the Agile Manifesto and connect with the principles. And so if you form a team, then what you want to do is develop the mission statement in collaboration with your team as opposed to just giving it to them. And so when you're designing the ethical part of the mission, the guardrails, then you're asking them to contribute to it, right? So you're not actually just giving it to them from on high. You're having them come up with the ideas or help you come up with the ideas, and you can help steer that conversation. But in the end, one of the core principles of an agile team is that they're self-organized, so that it's up to them to determine the work. And so you want to allow that, you want to empower them even in those first conversations when you're forming the mission and the metrics that you're going to measure progress by, and these guardrails give them the power to contribute to that. And I think that they'll actually feel empowered rather than put down upon.
Yes, that's excellent. Thank you very much, Brant Cooper. Brant, a new question came in from Alicia, and I think this is a great one. She wants to know, how do you recommend developing the humility to say, I don't know, so that people can enter the engaged learning and exploration mode described earlier? There's so much pressure sometimes, especially in the corporate world, as a leader to look like, to telegraph that, you've got it under control, everything. How can we get more comfortable being humble so we can make this kind of exploration happen?
Yeah, there's this really tough phase at the beginning, which is building trust, and it's you trusting your team and the team trusting you. I think the best way is through storytelling. And so it doesn't have to be like a massive failure, or it doesn't have to be a recent failure, but just something in your career where things went sideways, and what you learned from that. And so you're recognizing that, people make mistakes, and errors will be made, but there are also usually learning experiences. I remember that we were helping I believe it was Roche Diagnostics at the time, and the leader who had completely bought into this was really on his own journey for how he could empower people and really give them the means to conduct some of this behavior that we're talking about. And this man, it was just a massive man, 6'6" and two, I don't know, just 200 something, just a massive man, and a very hierarchical Swiss company. And people were really kind of scared of this man. And he's telling them, you have to go out and talk to customers. We're going to do this, and you're allowed to go talk to customers. And people were just still like, we're not allowed to talk to customers. I can't talk to customers. I'm not going to talk to customers. And he told this story of when he was younger, I guess one of his first jobs, where he had to dress up in a dinosaur outfit and go out into the world and talk to customers. And it was just such a great story that loosened up the room, and it was funny, and it was a little bit, a little humility there. And I think that that was like a great kickoff to the work that we did with them, because it still took time to get people comfortable with it, but it did give them some encouragement to go and do that. So I think storytelling is really a powerful way to get that going.
That's great. Absolutely. If you're not in a dinosaur outfit, it's already a good day. We are here with Brant Cooper. You can learn more about him at brantcooper.com. He's the author of books including The Lean Entrepreneur, and his most recent one is Disruption Proof. Now, Brant, something that I'm curious about. Speaking of disruption, this has been a kind of week for the record books when it comes to the tech industry and the massive layoffs that have happened. It was 11,000 laid off at Facebook/Meta just this week. In recent, I mean, Yeah. Was it also this week? Yeah. Half of Twitter staff was laid off. You've seen layoffs at places like Stripe, et cetera. This is a seismic shift for the tech industry. So if you were advising these companies and or these employees who really have not in the past decade seen conditions like this, they've always been, the tech companies have been growing, and massive job shedding is a fairly new phenomenon, at least in this decade. What is your advice as someone who deals with disruption and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's really a tough one. I mean, I think that I actually think the Twitter layoffs gave cover for all these other tech companies to follow suit. I think we've essentially manufactured this recession that we're going to go into, and I think that we shouldn't be managing our economy in that way, in my opinion. Um, I think that most of these type of reorganizations are examples of the top down, where they're actually not keeping in mind the efficiency of their mission. In other words, the way we manage these things in the West tends to be, okay, we're slashing all across groups and departments in a way that cuts into the muscle of the organization. And I think it's the wrong way to do it. And it's all done for financial efficiency. But financial efficiency by itself is kind of dumb, to be honest. What we should be doing is being financially efficient in achieving our mission. And if we sort of in the West, we drop the mission part of it, the reason why we're in business. And so if you're being financially efficient in pursuing and conducting our mission, okay, that's good. That's understandable. But just sort of the blanket layoffs I think is just dumb. And I think that what you have then are fiefdoms and leaders that are reorganizing inside there, and they're cutting at the bottom, or they're cutting older people, sort of the expensive stuff, and they're not thinking of the mission. They're not thinking about what true efficiency is. And boy, I would much rather do a transformation from the ground up and shred some of the leaders. But anyway, for those that have been cut, side hustle time. I mean, we live in an age where it's just incredible what you can do with digital technology, and taking some of your expertise and practicing some of these lean entrepreneur techniques, and trying to figure out if you can generate some revenue on the side. I tend to be a little optimistic, but I think we're going to bounce back quickly, because I think most of these companies are sitting on a ton of cash, and sort of the moment we get to the point where the Fed is like, okay, we're done destroying the economy, we'll start seeing a very quick rebound. I'm hopeful, but I think that this is a good opportunity for people to practice their empathy skills, run some experiments, try to figure out if there's ways that they can create some value for some other humans, and generate some revenue based upon that.
Fantastic. We're here with Brant Cooper. His new book is Disruption Proof, and I couldn't agree more. In my book, Entrepreneurial You, I talk about how people can create multiple income streams in order to make themselves more professionally
Nice.
secure. So I'm right there with you. If you're interested in any of this, make sure you get Brant's new book. It's called Disruption Proof. His previous book is The Lean Entrepreneur, and there's Entrepreneurial You as well. Brant Cooper, thank you so much for joining us.
Such a fun conversation, Dorie. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's tuning in from around the world. We're here every Thursday. We look forward to seeing you again next week, and take care.